Welcome to Week 3, Chapter 3, Human Nature and Organizational Behavior. So we're going to look at how dealing with human nature affects IT, affects access control, because we can have the best systems in place, but when it comes to dealing with humans, they screw up. So we're going to look at that this week. How do we prevent humans from making mistakes? Social engineering. So some of the things we're going to be looking at this week. Understand how human nature contributes to the needs of access control. Describe the organizational model. Explain the separations of duties. Describe responsibilities of access control. And explain best practices. That's what we're covering this week. This week we have 2 assignments. The first is your discussion question. Users who see security as an obstacle or nuisance are likely to be abide by security policies. So we're going to take a look at that and how humans are going to look at security policies. There's 2 parts to that question that I expect you to answer. So remember, your initial response is due Thursday, about 350 in length, and your response is to at least 2 classmates for that question. So please take your time and look at that. You're also going to have a lab. So when you bought the book, you should have gotten a lab. You're going to click on the Week 3 lab. It's going to take you over to into the lab file, and the documents in there. Designing a access control system. So you're going to follow the directions, the theory, the design. You'll take that. That's just the link. It's going to jump you into the Bartley, who's the author? Jones and Bartley Learning. You're going to open it up and you're going to perform that for me. Just follow the directions. And let me know how you do. If you have any issues, let me know. Contact help desk. But it takes you over to the Johns Bartley. So that is what our assignment is going to be. Again, that is due Sunday night. So make sure you take a look at that. So what is social engineering? Well, put it simple. Hackers know we have defenses in place. They know that we have firewalls, tracking, so we can see what goes on in the network. But social engineering is about bypassing all that and simply calling people up at random numbers. If you notice, wherever you work, chances are the first 6 digits of the phone numbers are all the same. So they can just look online, get that, and randomly start calling people. They might say, hey, I'm from the IT department. Heard we're having an issue. We need some testing done. Can you give me a login and password? So you'll literally bypass the whole IT system in order to get information from you. And that's called social engineering. So that's one of the things that we're going to look at. We're also going to look at, depending on the position, something called pre-employment background checks for sensitive data. I know most companies I've worked at, we've had to have background checks before we start, and it just makes sure we are who we say we are. And so this is a good way to ensure that people are on the up and up on what they're doing. If we hire the wrong person, well, that causes problems. So it's definitely worth taking our due diligence and making sure that we hire the person that is going to be best for us. And we want to make sure, termination. Do we have the policy? We talked about policies last week. Do we have the policy in place to ensure that when an employee is terminated, that we remove their system? I worked at one company. The first thing they would do is they were going to lay you off or fire you. They disabled your login account. You couldn't even log into the system. And you'd call the help desk, and they'd send you to your manager. You knew your days were numbered. Then they escorted you out. Some companies, my friend worked at a company. He was let go. He had access to the system for 6 months afterwards. So they didn't follow their policies because he wrote them. But this is some of the things that we got to think about when we're looking at some of the areas that we have. Another area that we want to look at with social engineering and job rotations. We want to make sure that we rotate jobs. It's not just from experience, But if we have new people going there every couple months or weeks, the chances of something being discovered that might not be legit is more likely. So we want to make sure that we have that. And if you don't have job rotation, possibly in sensitive areas, force vacation time, maybe a 2-week period where somebody has to take time off in order to make sure that they nothing's going on in that area. So that's another area that we want to look at. Something else we want to look at, make sure we have, if there's no collusion going on, so we might want to monitor multiple people to make sure everything is on the up and up. One way we help fight social engineering is training, constant training. It must be ongoing, it must be supported by the top management, and it should be interactive, includes multiple formats. They got to take maybe a test or a questionnaire afterwards about what they've learned. So that's really an important part that we have to have ongoing. It's not once and you're done. It's maybe every couple of months or a couple, over the years, every year or something like that. Employees need to be aware of our security policies and what's going on with them in them. So that's an important part also. Also ethics. Sometimes we'll look at some ethical things. We know it's not just stealing, but if you think about even using Facebook or Twitter, if you're on your phone, you're not working. Theoretically, you're stealing information, you're stealing time from your company. So I know we don't look at it that way, but that is something that still happens in the workforce, and it's becoming more and more prevalent as smartphones have become really prevalent in the workforce and for everyone to have them. So they might do work for a half hour and then spend time on the phone for a half hour. I know one of the companies I worked at, we had monitoring. This is before the iPhone, before phones, smartphones, but we'd monitor people's web active, and if it hit a certain amount during the day, we'd question them. We even let people go who were on the internet for multiple hours in a day when they shouldn't even be on it. So these are some of the things that companies will do and they need to do to make sure that we have this. Let's see, what else? So then we looked at the different case studies that we had. So one of the things that we want to look at and then enforcing policies. So we're going to make sure everyone has the policies that are in place. We want to make sure that they are enforced. So fostering a culture of open discussions. If there's a problem going on at securities, we'd have to get HR involved in it. So these are some of the different things that we want to look at. Let's see, private sector, we kind of looked at, I mentioned those in the slides about the organization, the public case. But basically, just to review, this chapter discussed how the human nature both insists upon access control and fights against it. We read about how social engineering impacts us and that it's not a technology, it's a simple, hey, met you out so-and-so, a random phone call, a random meet in the hall or outside to get information, because humans like to talk and spread out what's going on. So this is what some of the different things could be. One of the things we got to keep in mind is constant training. Training. Employees need to know about social engineering. They need to know about scams, phishing attacks. Just last year, well now it might be 2 years, the one person on Shark Tank, Barbara Corcoran, was scammed out of $300,000 by an email that was sent to her secretary. And I think they were able to recover some of the money, but this is what happens. People are looking to scam you. They're figuring out what different ways to do it. And we have to be trained. The better training we do, the better, more secure our business is going to be. And even by training the employees, it helps them in their personal life not to be scammed. So there's a lot that goes on with the human nature and making sure everyone is good. and that we scam. So again, you have what to do today, this week. I'm looking forward to working with you, and we'll see you soon.